Hello, welcome to our tutorial on security software exploits. In this video, we hope to share why it is important to not trust everything. Even the things that are meant to protect you can also hurt you. We will be focusing on a specific antivirus software made by Symantec called Norton Security. I'm sure many of you love their products.
Norton is often used by individual users seeking protection from malicious cyber attacks and is installed on many Windows and Mac operating systems, which means any compromise in Norton has the potential to directly affect the operating system and its kernel. Today, we'll demonstrate one of the recently found exploits against Norton on the Windows platform. As with all large-scale programs, antiviruses are bound to have their own weaknesses, including unintended bugs.
Security isn't particularly sexy, so few want to focus on seemingly remote threats, and companies that design antiviruses understand their users' distaste for the boring things in life. This puts pressure on the companies to design software that can not only take care of dynamic threats and monitor all incoming and outgoing traffic from the user, but also perform its job quickly enough so that it is unnoticeable by the user. But a balance between speed and security can prove to be tough, as the antivirus must be capable enough to handle a user judgment's lapses without compromising the user's ability to perform other tasks on the computer. Worms, viruses, Trojans all threaten to stalk the user, take over the user's PC, or otherwise harm the user in some way to the benefit of the hacker. And antiviruses must be able to handle these as well. One program must be able to appropriately deal with all of these factors and more, which would naturally make the program a large one. And as we all know, as the codebase grows, so do the number of bugs and potential exploits. Moreover, since antiviruses usually run with the highest privileges, exploits against antiviruses are extremely lucrative, making them a prime target for abuse. However, since computers and cyberspace are considered to be mysterious to many people, they falsely believe that the most advertised form of computer security, antiviruses, is the panacea to any lurking online threats. As you will see, this sentiment is not necessarily true and may in fact expose the user to even greater risk.
The basic job of an antivirus engine is to constantly scan for dynamic threats, like malicious processes, threads, and images before execution and during runtime in the background. However, since searching user space for any malicious threats is an incomplete protection against the myriad of threats these days, an antivirus engine will perform more advanced tasks, such as scanning the file system for malicious files, preventing dangerous and unauthorized overwrites, as well as offering a network firewall to monitor incoming internet traffic and more, without using too much memory and overhead. To meet these specifications, these drivers are often written in low-level languages, creating greater potential for exploits.
One of the advanced tools used by the antivirus engine is an unpacker. An unpacker is simply a file decompressor used to open up compressed files for malicious software scanning. Typically, antivirus engines have an executable packer and unpacker that compresses as well as decompresses files and scans and tests these files for any malicious signatures. However, since there are many different types of compressed files, the unpacker must be able to unpack most, if not all, types of compressed files. And this leads to security exploits, as unpackers are extremely hard to write and prone to vulnerabilities. The level of security compromise from this kind of attack has been magnified in the case of Symantec's unpacker, which runs in the kernel and presents a huge security flaw. the kernel has complete control over everything, and when compromised, can lead to complete takeover of the system by the attacker. This hack is particularly troubling because it can be packed into a worm and spread to many different users automatically. Here is a quick demo of the potential attack on the computer. But before we show a quick demo of the potential of this flaw, we are going to give a quick background on how the exploit works. To construct a file that can take advantage of this bug, we begin by creating a malformed header that triggers the ASPack, unpacker, and semantic. Within the file, it specifies two different sizes for the antivirus. One size is used to copy the file to a buffer. The program then copies the contents of the buffer into the heap with no checks on whether the buffer content exceeds the allocated size. Hackers can take advantage of this bug by creating a size mismatch in the file header, since multiple size variables are controlled by the user. Use of two different size variables for copying presents a risk of overflow, especially if both are controlled by the user with no innate limits on their values. Since the antivirus opens up the file by itself for scanning, the user does not even need to manually open the file. Just allowing the antivirus to unpack the file will force a kernel memory corruption, or worse, as Norton attempts to unpack its files in the kernel.
Another type of exploit is the PowerPoint misaligned stream cache remote stack buffer overflow. Basically, PowerPoint files that are aligned so that the buffer cache reads from the kernel can have consequences where the rounding error of the buffer sizes are at fault. This is part of the exploitable decomposer library that Symantec uses to read its PowerPoint stream. The PowerPoint data is stored in a series of continuous records. This requires parsing through a series of streams in which the compound file binary format developed by Microsoft. Symantec's implementation of their input-output from storage is buffered into cache for better performance. This is part of the once faulty decomposer library that extracts document metadata and embedded macros. The overrounding of the buffer cache for the file stream allows excess room for buffer overflow attacks in the cache, which that can be rob chained to gain admin or root access to the system. In this visualization, all of the cases work fine except for where a buffer overflow occurs, because the request is rounded up to cache size minus offset. This excess empty room allows for an attacker to inject his overflow into the cache. Before the attack, we need to set up the admin's security heuristic settings to aggressive. The aggressive setting allows the engine to read more metadata from the PowerPoint streams. We look for a PowerPoint stream containing a compressed Atom object in which the decomposer runs it in the kernel, and when it decomposes the PowerPoint stream and the Atom object, the buffer overflow takes over the cache. By setting up the PowerPoint to target the cache, we have room to inject buffer overflow code directly running in the kernel.
Some say that the best route is to not download an antivirus at all. But we think that is an extreme route to take. Antiviruses still provide some protection against malware. But ultimately, it is up to the user and the antivirus companies to follow best practices to minimize risk. Here are some of our suggestions.
For corporations, a good development team should take some time out of their month to review the security of their products in production. Using more secure library functions, especially open source material, and checking the production platforms and its potential privileges can be a start. Unfortunately, this can be seen as wasting company time on exploits that are hard to detect. Yet one vulnerability can lead to millions of dollars in damages and loss of company reputation. Allowing developers to co-review their code and to use secure libraries and functions may be worth it in the long run.
For customers, users should take care to review the reputations of antivirus companies and their program effectiveness if they choose to buy antivirus software. There are many benchmark tests online that display the effectiveness of these commercial packages. Users should also be careful of what sites they're visiting and what they download onto their computers. There are also many sites that compile lists of best practices to follow for risk minimization, which have been recommended by security experts, and users should at least be aware of these guidelines. If you're interested in learning more about these exploits and want to try them out for yourself, with permission of course, please take a look at the links below. Thank you.